They're giving this everything they have, and they're only kids! I put my faith in you! I believed you could take the fall for me! What the hell's gotten into you?
I cared for you so much.
I trusted you and no one else!
Lieutenant
Now
Ricker.
I'll have to I need you to die, Tamaki!
Somebody, please just make him stop. Help me, please.
Hey there, Tamaki. You alright?
Anime has a problem. Let's back up. To give you some context, this guy right here burned some children alive and some other people alive because he's a bad guy. Then he proceeds to try to frame this girl, who really admires him by the way, for their murders. So our main character comes in and saves her and starts fighting the bad guy. All good. But in the middle of the fight, this happens.
Sorry. Okay, cool. Let's do this.
Could you give back my skirt first?
Huh?
And it hit me almost as hard as this guy hit her chest. Anime does this a lot. It presents its audience with great setups, primed for tense and dramatic resolutions, and then undercuts that dramatic tension with some element of absurdist comedy.
Sorry, it's not like that. I got punched into you, okay?
This problem isn't exclusive to any one type of anime either. It happens in almost every genre without exception. But why? Personally, I think this tradition can be traced back to owadai, which is an umbrella term used to describe Japanese comedy. Elements of owadai, such as manzai, a traditional form of Japanese comedy where two comedians, one dumb and one smart, perform a gag routine, are prime examples of the absurdist routines often seen in anime. In a more general sense, elements of owadai can be found in popular television shows such as Gaki no Tsukai, where, according to a paper published by this guy, whose name I'm not going to try to pronounce, out of the University of Iceland, famous comedians are gathered together and kept under surveillance for 24 hours while encountering absurd situations. If they laugh at these absurd situations, they're punished in some more absurd ways, like this. Clips like these demonstrate there is a clear preference for slapstick and absurdist humor in Japanese culture compared to Anglo-Saxon cultures. And while I don't think there is a one-to-one correlation between this style of humor and the humor found in anime, I think it would be dishonest to state that there isn't at least somewhat of a connection. But these are just one man's opinions on the possible origins of this problem. Opinions that, while not meant to solve it, do give it context. Going back to this anime, called Fire Force, we have a scene where our protagonist and our antagonist are fighting it out to determine the fate of not only this girl, but other children and innocent civilians as well. Despite the betrayal twist being obvious, the setup to this fight is incredibly well framed, and the tension of whether or not the protagonist will win in the end is invariably called into question at this moment, especially given the added context from a few episodes prior, where we are shown just how strong and superior this antagonist is. The scene is, for all intents and purposes, meant to feel oppressive. The audience knows the protagonist can't beat his opponent, and, while we aren't under any illusion that his failure could result in death because of the show's genre, there are still several very important things at stake. And because of this, the writer has the perfect recipe for dramatic tension. Because while they might not be able to threaten the life of their main character, they can threaten the life or lives of everything they hold dear. All of that is thrown out of the window with this scene. And for what? A crude gag revolving around the sexual harassment of the girl he came to rescue? Even assuming this is amusing to a predominantly Japanese audience, the use of comedy during the scene clashes with the tone it tries to establish before and after. It ends up undercutting the scene by signaling to the audience that it's not important enough, or that there's not enough at stake to warrant a completely somber atmosphere free of comedic relief. This criticism is often levied at Marvel as well, for the use of quips and sight gags during otherwise serious moments which destroy dramatic tension in a scene. But where Marvel differentiates itself from anime in this regard is that Marvel's quips and jokes don't generally drive the narrative to a halt, but rather play upon their absurdity. There's a scene in Infinity War where Iron Man quips that Ebony Maw, one of the antagonists, should, in his words, get lost, Squidward, in reference to the popular SpongeBob character.
I'm sorry, Earth is closed today. You better pack it up and get out of here.
Stonekeeper, does this chattering animal speak for you?
Certainly not. I speak for myself. I'm trespassing in this city and on this planet.
It means get lost, Squidward.
He exhausts me.
Now, I want you to step back for a second. This looks a lot different from the scene in Fire Force, doesn't it? The tone has still been undercut by the comedy, but you're still in the scene. The audience isn't completely removed from it to focus on the comedic bit, which preserves immersion and thus audience engagement. And when those two elements of the scene are completely preserved, it becomes much easier to rein the audience back in and re-up the stakes as opposed to a complete removal from the scene. This problem isn't just a Western versus Eastern distinction in forms of humor or scene staging either. There are anime such as Konosuba where humor takes center stage, and the comedy doesn't necessarily grind the narrative to a halt, but instead works with it. Take this scene, for example.
カズマです。これはどうだ。白狼の群れの討伐、報酬100万エリス。けだものどもの群れにめちゃくちゃにされる自分を想像しただけで。却下。カズマだよ。これはどうですか?
Characters in this scene keep going with the dialogue even after the quip. The humor isn't meant to be the focus, but an addition to the portrayal of what's happening in the scene. Okay. So let's say we've identified this as a problem. Who really cares? What's the point? The point, to me at least, is that while anime is created by and for a predominantly Japanese audience, and they may not care about their international consumer base, or whether or not it's even consumed by an international audience in the first place, the overall quality of their work drops considerably when writers put the insertion of a comedic gag before the tonal narrative flow of their work. Apathy towards the West's consumption of anime doesn't excuse Western critique of its worst elements. And as fans of the medium, I think it's fair to fight for the best possible outcome for the genre. But what do you think? I look forward to hearing your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe for more content like this. And until next time, Tired Viewer, signing off.